something for them, shut it down. Nasty man, no stopping for them, shut it down. Be a sign, I go shot your boy dead, shut it down. Full of vibes, no compromise, let me keep it raver. Something for them, me a the savior. Nasty man, no stopping for them, me a go crave ya. Ill behavior. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
Happy Monday, everybody. We're not shutting it down. We are starting it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification, Bryce. I think some people were concerned that we were going to
They tuned in and they're like, what? They told us to come here for the show and now they're shutting down?
Shutting it down? What?
This doesn't make any sense.
We ready to go?
Just one more minute for me, please. Oh, okay. 1 minute, just
Hey, have you guys, spoiler alert, this is going to be my pick, so we don't have to talk about it now, but just to ask, have either of you two gentlemen watched Cobra Kai yet? Worthy. It's very worthy. And you will find it worthy even if you just watch only the first 2 episodes, like if it's not your flavor of storytelling, but they do some remarkable things, and it's astonishingly fun.
I would be into it. I'm just not like... I'm kind of like, so no way am I doing a YouTube Red. I'm kind of like just.
Can I tell you, I'm in the same boat, and guess who signed up for YouTube Red? like I was like, all right, you got me. But the first 2 episodes are free and out there.
Cool. Alrighty, I think I'm good to go. So when you're good to go, we'll be good to go. So take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Hello.
Brian Brushwood.
I'm not sick. You're sick. Your face is sick.
And who is the sick person of them all? Our producer, Bryce Castillo.
Hi, guys.
As he coughed in his hand. First up, just a little self-promotion bit. I don't know if you noticed this, but I've been slightly evasive about what I've been up to since, I don't know, I was missing several episodes of Weird Things,
we hadn't noticed.
Yeah. And you ever been in those situations where like, hey, when can I talk about a thing? They're like, not yet. We'll let you know when you can talk about it. And you're like, okay. And then you get a Google News alert pops up and you're like, huh. They're talking about it.
Oh, that's great. And that's always how it goes. When I was at Halloween Horror Nights, they're like, no, you don't say nothing. You don't say nothing. And then Twitter pops up and you're like, hey, anyway, so I guess you're back this year. I was like, oh, God damn it. Okay, fine. I wish I could have controlled the narrative.
Well, let's say that there was a press release came out that wasn't quite totally accurate either.
Oh,
which
really?
You're like, huh, how do I handle this one? So I will read a press release for you.
You're going to read what is currently being reported and offer no comment.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right. So I have a Google News alert.
A little bit of comment. There's one piece of comment that is relevant.
Cash Cab renewed at Discovery Channel. It's an exclusive to Hollywood Reporter. Now, if you go through this, no, I'm not the host of Cash Cab. But if you go through there, they say the Emmy Award-winning series returns with a shark-themed episode in July, timed to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the network's Shark Week. The episode will include videos from some of the most renowned divers and photographers featured in previous editions of Shark Week, including Andrew Main, Paul DeGelder, Andy Casagrande, and Joe Romero.
Hold on. That would imply that you have
Wait a
previously appeared on Shark Week.
Hold on. I got a question. And this is serious. Because, Andrew, I have known you since I was 15 years old. I have worked with you professionally on television projects, on magic projects, on digital publishing. I would dare say that there are few people on this earth that have spent more time with you physically than I have. And I feel very hurt that you have become a previous diver on Shark Week, and you kept that from me until this Hollywood Reporter scoop reveals to me that apparently all the time that you told me that you were sleeping or writing, you were stealing off to God knows where sharks congregate so you could keep then secret once they aired the fact that you were a diver in the 30-year history of Shark Week. This is deeply injurious to me.
Renowned diver. It says renowned diver.
Renowned. I mean, like, apparently everybody else was renowning you, and here I am just sitting at the Wicker House twiddling my thumbs.
Most renowned diver. Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, Justin, I've I run deep, man. I run really, really deep. I can't tell you how deep I run because it's pretty damn deep. So
yeah, here's all I'm saying. All right. Because the only way that this isn't, that we're not in a real fight right now, is that for whatever reason, the Hollywood Reporter has gotten things incorrect and you haven't been a previously renowned diver for Shark Week. That would be the only way that we're not, that this isn't, that I don't feel very offended by reading this bit of reporting by the Hollywood Reporter.
Well, all I can say, Justin, is I don't think it'll come to fist fight.
Wait, between
between me and Andrew.
Between me and Justin, yes.
Oh, got it. Okay. I was like between whom? Between me and Bryce right now.
No, that's happening.
Oh, okay.
After the show, we're going out back.
So, yeah, I don't know what I can't. If you were doing further, perhaps I'm doing a Shark Week special.
Yeah.
That may not be a bad inference to make from there. As far as what I'm doing on there or what it's about.
Would it be outrageous? You know what? I have no affiliation with any of this, and I certainly don't have any inside knowledge. But it seems to me that if you
also don't do a Discovery show.
What's that?
You also don't make shows for Discovery.
That's right. Well, okay. Even though I do, disclaimer, I do work for a Discovery-funded network, but it just seems to me that if you're listed, even if it's by mistake, as a past diver for Shark Week, and a special you would do is going to be airing during Shark Week, just seems like, to me, if I were programming that, I'd make sure it had something to do with sharks. That's me. That's my opinion. Come at me, bros.
Yeah. It also kind of seems like, of all the skills that I have known Andrew to have, that it would probably not only center on diving. It wouldn't just be Andrew Maine's dive time. There might be something. I mean, I don't know. Although you are a very accomplished diver, maybe there would be something more to it. I don't know.
You know, the funny thing is that I know what you're trying to suggest, but if we tell people that, they're going to be led to an assumption that's probably not. It's
correct.
Further from it than closer to it.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I guess this is a tantalizing question that we can only see how it unfolds in the coming weeks.
I mean,
I will only add this. Hypothetically, were said person like myself to get on Shark Week, I'm not a household name. I'm not a known person. I would have to be doing something extremely stupid and dangerous.
Well, whatever it is.
This guy. Yeah, this guy.
I don't know what it is, but if I was your manager or agent, I would suggest that you keep it on brand. You know, your previous show was Don't Trust Andrew Main. It seems like deception's in your brand. But to be honest, I mean, I don't see how to combine that with Shark Week at all. Deception and sharks, that's weird.
I don't know.
You make a coin vanish for a shark and it poops the waters? I don't get it. What could it be?
That's the best thing that could happen. So we'll have.
The worst is you poop the water.
Yeah, no idea.
Don't eat Andrew Main.
Don't eat Andrew Main. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about this. I will say that it was an experience of a lifetime. And I really, really mean that. It was as we're able to talk more about it, it's one of these things like, oh, yeah, that sounds cool. Like, well, this is what we're going to be doing now. Oh, okay, I'll go with it. Oh, yeah, now it's going to be this. Oh, okay. And now, well, it has to be this. I'm like, sure. I mean, that's not a dumb idea, right?
I don't know exactly what you're working up to, but I do know that in my career, there have been moments that you make decisions. I talk about this from time to time that, you know, I picture you live life half as a first-person strategy game, the other half as a real-time strategy game, or first-person shooter and real-time strategy. And real-time strategy, Brian, has made some decisions that at later points I found first person Brian thinking like, God damn it, real Brian, other Brian. It's when you're hanging out the back of a Dodge Charger rigged up by a stuntman, and your job is to hold open the trunk and scream out the opening line of the show as they accelerate to 75 miles an hour, and you realize all of a sudden nobody has really thought this out, and you don't have the strength to push back the wind of 75 miles an hour. You think, well, it seemed like a good idea when I said yes.
Yeah, or you finish something, and you're like, ooh, all right, and they tell you, oh, by the way, here's an interesting statistic about what you just did, and you're like, huh.
Pretty glad I didn't know that.
Yeah, so anyhow, it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I got to work with an awesome group of people, an exciting team. The people that did this, they've done a lot of other great Shark Week stuff. Super, super great team. Best crew I've ever worked with. Just amazing. And they'll be leaking more details about it. Meanwhile, let's move on to weird things. Gentlemen, there was a story that while I was absent doing, well, presumably something involving sharks, I love this one, and I didn't send it to Bryce because I thought it was just too cool. And unless I accidentally sent it to Bryce because I was lazy or forgetful. Did we talk about using AI to recreate cartoons?
No, we were going to talk about this last week, and we ended up pushing it to this week.
Recreate cartoons.
So I've been digging deep into machine learning, and let's say hypothetically a tangential project, which isn't part of what I did, but maybe something was related. Like, let's say I remember talking about building an object classifier, something to be able to spot, recognize objects and images. Because I don't know, maybe there was some sort of undersea life that I was very, very curious to see if I could track where they were at all time. Because I hear they like to sneak up on you.
This is going to be one of those things that's going to be really fun to go back and look through all the just casually interesting things that you were interested in over the past 6 months on weird things.
Yeah,
So
no,
I
everybody
got
get your
Reader
big to go
certified,
cards
you
ready.
know.
What was that, Justin?
I said, yeah, no, everybody go back and look back.
Yeah. And then when you see furthermore, but anyway, I got into like machine learning stuff, and like I actually did build a system for like they can look all around you and identify sharks. I'm like, how can technology help me? So anyhow, there is a computer program they've worked on, which is actually able to take, like, they programmed it using machine learning. What you do is you take huge amounts of images or data, whatever. You feed it into a big computer, and the big computer runs all these different algorithms trying to find the best way to solve a problem. Picking up a noise in a background, looking for what relates one image to another, what makes something shark-like or what makes something car-like or face. And you can program this to do different stuff. And what some researchers did is they actually took this system, they took a system and they programmed it, they fed it hours and hours, a tremendous amount of time of Flintstones cartoons.
Oh, jeez.
With the images of Fred, Wilma, all of that sort of stuff. So it kind of understood the Flintstone-ness of it. And then they're able to say, hey, create a scene of like, Wilma talking on the telephone. Create a scene of like Wilma and Betty sitting at a table talking.
So among the information, did it have scripting information? Like, did they do text to speech or speech to text so that it could understand the composition of the joke vignettes?
That I don't think so. I think they just went purely for
just the
visual elements.
Okay.
But I think they wrote it out in text, is my understanding from this article.
Yeah, they would give it the instructions like that. Let's try AI. Do we?
So we've got a video here if you guys would like to see it.
Oh, wonderful.
So this is a robot who has watched all of the Flintstones attempting to put together a Flintstone scene. Oh, got it. So in the upper left-hand corner, we've got and the image, the animated GIF delivers. Fred is wearing a red hat, is walking in the living room. I can't read this because it's behind the camera. What's the next one, Justin?
Betty and Wilma have a conversation in the living room. They take turns conversing with each other while they are seated on the couch. Betty and Wilma are seated at the table. Pebbles is sitting at a table in a room watching the television. Wilma's talking to Fred while he is sitting in the dining room and the dining table reading a book. Fred just reads his book and ignores Wilma, which that one is not correct.
What do you mean? Oh, the image is not correct.
Yeah, because
So-
she is ignoring him.
So they were fed the words, and then the computer tried to animate what was happening. Got it.
But it is shocking how close it gets to, like, I'd say it's probably like an 80% success rate. Obviously, some of the animation is a little glitchy, but like, holy smokes, like that's something that you would imagine could be smoothed through further machine learning.
And when you see it a little closer, you can tell that, you know, there's some, the way it's cut out, some of the frames is maybe not the smoothest, and it's also the sort of deep fakes thing where it's incredibly low resolution. So you kind of fill in a lot of this stuff in your head
mentally.
Yeah.
So it reminds me a little bit of, what was that thing like 8 or 9 years ago where you would type in a script and then it would very crudely animate it with a couple of characters and a text-to-speech synthesizer, where it's like you could take a back and forth conversation and it would be like, you know, I don't believe that Titanic was the best movie of all time. What do you mean? It was the highest grossing James Cameron vehicle. It must have been great.
Yeah,
and
it was like a free online
potatoes, and then, you know, and then that was it. Do you guys remember this? No.
Well, I do remember there was that a Twitch channel like maybe last year that had two AIs talking to each other that wound up becoming very popular.
Well, this was used to take what might otherwise be like a comic strip and turn it into a brief, you know, 30-second YouTube video, and it would, you just typed in the words, person one says this, person two said that, and it would just throw together a little play.
Sorry. Okay, that generator. Yes, no, the yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that it was all pre-animated.
Yeah, that's right. Knots __ says the I want an iPhone is like, no, I want an iPhone, but this Samsung Galaxy is better but I want an iPhone. Oh, that one.
I think maybe extra normal, or maybe that's the
Yeah, there we go. This is the engine that was used. You could do it for anything. It was like publicly available.
Finally get some more HTC Evos in.
What? What is that? Is it an iPhone?
No, it is that 4G phone on Sprint.
Yeah,
Whatever this engine is,
I think it's extra normal.
Okay, it reminds me of that, where you could imagine writing a Simpsons script, and then with the back catalog of all the Simpsons episode and a decent amount of computing power, it was able to crudely, or maybe even not crudely, maybe just full on animate a Simpsons episode of your writing.
Oh yeah, I mean, what's neat, like what that thing was cool before, but that, as you know, just took like a game engine and said move the mouth according to this.
Sure.
Where what this AI does is it's like it invents entirely new scenes. It doesn't have 3D models of Fred or Wilma or anything in there. It's not, and that's what kind of makes it sort of spooky. Is it just watched the cartoon and now it's like, oh, I can draw this cartoon too. And yeah, I think as good as many Hanna-Barbera artists. Of that time period.
Well, what's funny is that's the way real artists learn as well. Is they just crudely make poor translations that get better and better and better over time.
Yeah, it's as you have to figure out, like, one is how specific is the input that it gets. So there's like giving it instructions.
Can you go back real quick, Bryce?
The mini Fred.
Yeah, no, my favorite is, it says Wilma and Fred are in the bedroom. Fred is sitting on a bed leaning over as he talks to Wilma, who's also in bed, which is mostly right, except for the artistic decision they made to throw Barney in the bed as well, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's and so you realize that if you break it down into several challenges they have to do. It's kind of amazing, kind of scary, because also, as Bryce mentioned, the whole deep fakes thing, deep fakes. And this was something we talked about years ago on this show when, and like the whole, like, some of the releases of celebrities, sex videos and things like this, is that there's going to be a point where it will not matter, because it'll be so easy to fake something that it's going to lose its value. You'll be like, well, is it like real or not? Like, I don't care. People have sex. Sometimes it's on video, and I've already seen what my favorite celebrities look like doing it anyways, because I'm a pervy person who goes to perv sites and watches pervy videos. I'm not speaking for myself.
It is amazing to see how the line was drawn on deep fakes, though, specifically when it came to the porn. While I think that there still is a subreddit for, like, safe for work deepfakes, where you're trying to put one actor into another movie and stuff like that. All the most popular deepfakes Reddit forum was banned because it was not necessarily for pornography, but because you were creating pornography that would be misleading to the actresses and actors that were put into these pornographic films. But I think even like the big free porn sites decided that they were not going to host deep fake videos and have drawn the lines drawn lines in the sand for that, which is odd because they run real sex tapes, whether or not they were legally or illegally found or profligated.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's understandable why everybody would back off on all of that, because what you're doing is you're poking a bee's nest. You're poking the rich and very, very powerful with essentially an unsympathetic First Amendment idea. Like, do you have the right to put out simulations of public figures having sex or whatever? But which technically would be the same. I don't know. The First Amendment issue would be, is it illegal for somebody to say out loud, I am imagining this famous person engaging in this act? And all that is theoretically, hypothetically, a higher fidelity expression of exactly that.
One of my favorite Dana Carvey bits of all time is imagining Jimmy Stewart having sex.
Yeah.
Which is like one of the funniest things. But you put it on a deep fake, and now all of a sudden we got problems.
Well, and that's going to be, I think I understand why, like, some of the websites, porn wheel or whatever that was called, decided to.
That was smooth. I think
why
I'm
they
convinced.
To, they want to avoid that issue entirely because they're the lawsuits, et cetera, things like that, and that's because that's a big challenge. Somebody else might say, hey, we're willing to take the chance and take this to court because it gets into, you have now Avengers, a XXX parody. We're now mining our childhood for porn, by the way, hey, Scooby-Doo, these cartoons you loved. Guess what? We're not going to make that. So that's an area.
I've never heard of this phenomenon.
It's a recent thing, Brian. It's not really in your circle.
Okay.
So, Night Attack.
What?
The XXX parody. Let me correct.
Oh my God, that's horrific.
This is definitely not Night Attack.
But that's an area that somebody's going to push those boundaries, because you're going to get into, if you say, yeah, no, it's a parody. Well, it looks just like so and so, you're using a likeness. Well, yeah, I can put on prosthetic makeup and do a sketch of this person, sketch, whatever.
Skeet.
I can go do this. I can impersonate their voice. When has this become? If we're saying it's parody, like, yeah, it's going to be kind of sit back and watch the court battles over that one.
Yeah. I do think that it's interesting, and it was interesting where kind of the first ethical lines were drawn on it. That this was, looked at in the same. It seems like the argument is this is closer to revenge porn than it is parody for these sites that have banned it. So that's their argument, that this is non-consensual. These people did not consent to putting their face on here, and so therefore it is or it is outside of what they would like to legally defend. Because really, when you talk about First Amendment stuff, that's what you're really talking about. It's the First Amendment is not, the law laid down by the stone tablets. It is practically what you feel comfortable defending in court, even understanding that it might benefit you. You are always taking a chance going into a courtroom setting that you will be ruled against, even if 9 times out of 10 you normally are ruled for in that case. So they got to make those calls, and they got to make the calls based on, like what Brian said, part of that decision is made by, hey, we don't have money in the legal budget to go to court all that much, right? Like, or at least as much as we will if all of a sudden maybe a few agents, called into some of those websites and said, hey, look, all these people that have their faces and their names in these titles will be bringing lawsuits en masse if you do not make a ruling on that.
So I was at a gathering of people who are very individual liberty, pro-liberty, individual liberty type group, whatever. Kind of thing. A friend invited me to go there, and I sat at a dinner, and the guy immediately to my left, famous porn producer star, okay, big into civil liberty stuff, right? Very, very, very big into this sort of stuff. And I could very much see somebody like him saying, hey, you know what? Like, I'll try this, I'll do this. Because there's a lot of, very anti-authoritarian people into that community. It would not surprise me if somebody says like, hey, screw you all, I'm going to go make this. I'm going to put your favorite Avengers, use their faces in this because I've computer read them. I do this and sue me. Let's see what happens. And meanwhile, I'm going to get a ton of press.
Now, here's the other thing about that is because a lot of these are the way
Remember,
that
Larry
generate.
Flint, sorry to interrupt you, Larry Flint,
Oh, sure.
first, big example of somebody there bucking the system.
I guess the question would be, can you create something like that with footage that you own? Is there a legal right to say, well, yeah, but we can prove that in the generation of your AI version of this person's face that you used copyrighted content or you used content that was owned by other people? Is that, even if it's just Christopher the Mill, right? Like you're just throwing it in and creating this whole new face, is that legally actionable? Like these are the questions that we're going to be looking at.
And I guess in a weird way, and I'm sure there's everything wrong with this argument, but in a weird way, it's almost as though the argument would be you are profiting from the thoughts that are in this person's mind. We're the ones responsible for putting these characters, situations, and whatever that you're monetizing from that brand share. Therefore, we're entitled to a piece of whatever it is you're doing. Or the ability to shut it down. Like for example, let's say there's a XXX Avengers parody, right? And let's say it's suddenly the most popular porn parody of all time. Let's say it makes $1 billion, a lot of money, and then Disney says, "Hey, the only reason that I can imagine them making a case, the only reason that you made $1 billion is because of all the thoughts people had of these characters, these situations, these actors under contract with Disney or whatever. That's the only reason that this $1 billion. It's not because it was well acted or whatever, the script was amazing or anything you did. It was because you're the remora on the underbelly of our shark."
Relevant, that would be. I don't know if you'd ever get it with the thought argument, but when they talk about it being too derivative, they could say these elements of it. You're borrowing, and that's where what can you claim? You can claim an image, you can claim a likeness, a storyline to a degree. It's hard, but you can claim those things, and so that's where. But they've avoided these lawsuits because I think they've lost some, or they know that if they bring them, chances are they don't want to go all the way to the Supreme Court. But that's where part of what our copy productions in our country try to encourage. So yeah, you get certain usage of it, but you don't get a complete monopoly on every implementation of it. You can, and that's. There's been talks about like sports scores. Can you report on sports scores in real time as they're coming out of stadiums and stuff? And that would seem like, and I think you can because it's like factual information, but they tried to stop that because, hey, this is our content we're creating. But it's like, but once it happens, it's a fact.
Similarly, there was somebody in the 90s who was going to do a Seinfeld trivia question book, a Q&A, where it's just like, what's George Costanza's favorite dish or whatever. And the threat of a lawsuit got them utterly shut down, which is amazing because there does exist a show called Seinfeld, and the characters on them did say things, and asking a Q&A question of like, did he say A, B, or C, you would think would be fair game, but I guess you're not.
Well, I would say there's tons of unofficial ones where people have said yes, we'll fight it, and that becomes the challenge. Is that you have being clear and in the right doesn't mean you can afford more lawyers than Paramount or the producers behind. And that gets to be the challenge, is that you can sometimes defend stuff. You have a leg to stand on, and that the Gawker lawsuit was certainly people try to pose it as like, how do you go up against a billionaire? I'm like, I don't know. How does $100 million company, which has swatted down people with no lawyers whatsoever left and right, go up against a billionaire? It's like, it's not the same, but it's still the general sort of thing. The overall argument is like, well, if somebody has more money than you and wants to keep going, civilly, they'll prevail.
I found a quote from a producer from Pink Visual, I guess an adult content company, on the subject of copyright. She says, quote, "To date, there has not been a bright line rule with regards to parodies in the adult context. A bright line rule would be difficult to establish since every case/parody is different. On the other hand, the argument could be made that due to the nature of our content, a parody could tarnish the name of a rights holder. However, on the other hand, the argument could be made that parodies in the adult context would qualify for a fair use defense, as with other parodies." She also went on to talk about the idea that possibly the rights holders could be in on this. She says something to be aware of is that although one suspects a company such as Marvel has not entered into a private agreement regarding parodies of their content, one never knows the substance of private agreements.
So theoretically, somebody who, somebody could make a deal with somebody, somebody who knows Hanna-Barbera could make a deal with, a pornographer to like, all right, well, they get paid as some sort of consultant, and then the consultant pays out to Hanna-Barbera if they wanted to participate in the profits without participating in the profits.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. I would find that unlikely in some of the bigger companies, but you never know.
I think the possibility that they could be found out to be participating in pornography profits for a children's company or a family-friendly company
too damaging.
Out risk, anything that they would make on it.
Well, and this article, and this is from 2012, makes a point that the fact that there haven't been lawsuits is partially evidence that an arrangement like this could exist, but of course nobody would ever talk about it because if it did exist, it would be a private agreement.
Yeah, well, but again, when you're dealing with public companies, a lot of moving parts and people and stuff, and I think it's more likely that if you're Disney, do you want to take Avengers XXX porn parody all the way to the Supreme Court and create? Do you want to, because they've avoided stuff. There was like Lost in Tomorrowland or whatever that was, this movie this person shot inside the park, which could be considered a violation of their rights, copyrights, etc., whatever. A guy shot an entire movie inside the park, and they're waiting, wait until Disney decides to shut this down. It'll be great publicity. Just wait. And Disney never said a thing. Disney just ignored it, and then it went away.
And that's them avoiding the Barbara Streisand effect, right? Where the mere fact of saying anything about it causes more of a thing.
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing is they, can you figure out a way to, as long as they're comfortably, delineating that this is not us, and separating it, because once you enter into an agreement, that could become dangerous, because if that agreement did become leaked, and not to say that things ever leak from agreements in this day and age. There was, because you see that happen too, particularly with entertainment properties. When J.K. Rowling wrote under a pseudonym forget which book, whatever it was,
about Traveler or something.
Something like, a month before it came out, it leaked. This is actually a book by J.K. Rowling, because I think the publisher is looking at the numbers going, what could we do?
That's interesting. It didn't even occur to me that, because I'm dumb, that of course, of the two parties, one of them would have a huge financial incentive to allow a whoopsie doodle to get out.
Well, and also it's like, all right, well, J.K. Rowling wants to prove that she's an author that can, could make it again because she's talented, and so she's going to write under a man. I believe it was under a man's name, right? That was part of the experiment.
Robert Galbraith.
Yeah,
Galbraith.
And then ultimately it's like, okay, well, that's very interesting, J.K., but also we like making money. So what if somebody accidentally said?
Remember Garth Brooks and Chris Gaines.
Yeah.
That was this. So Garth Brooks decided to create this sort of pop star persona, recorded an album, photo sessions, everything. And it was like, man, that's kind of an amazing experiment. But then he sort of backed out from it and says, hey, I created a pseudonym called Chris Gaines.
And then nothing happened with it, or wasn't it going to be like a movie, a character he was going to play in a movie or something, and then the movie never came out? People often use
that excuse. Remember, if you ever get caught doing something you shouldn't be doing, research for a movie.
Interesting.
Initially, Brooks planned to feature the Gaines persona in The Lamb, a motion picture which never materialized.
Interesting.
He did. I remember he did a Saturday Night Live where it was hosted by Garth Brooks and I think musical guested by Chris Gaines.
Yeah.
And it just didn't take? People didn't have a taste for it?
Well, I don't know. I think at that point, Garth Brooks was so gigantic. This is what, the mid to late 90s that happened. But Garth Brooks was a crossover country star, the likes of which I don't know if we've ever seen since or had been seen before.
Taylor Swift?
Sure. Yeah. Although, if Taylor Swift had stayed kind of like, I'm a country performer, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, and then he wanted to. I mean, I guess that's kind of the secret, is that like if Garth Brooks just all of a sudden started making Chris Gaines records, right, and just called it Garth Brooks, he'd be Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was just like, no. Now I just make pop music. I don't do guitar-driven country anymore.
Yep. It is a very, very strange and weird world we're entering into. And just a little note, last week, I think it was Friday, there was yet another rocket launch from SpaceX. Yawn. But, and they landed the rocket, by the way.
Yeah.
Of course, because that's what
Now
they
this
do.
rocket
Hey, also
is
in this news, Southwest Airlines landed another plane. It was amazing.
Well, with actually Southwest, there actually has been. There's like a third incident where maybe choose a different example. But yes. But here's the thing: this rocket will not be disassembled. I mean, will not be relaunched. They're going to disassemble it because this is Block 5. This is the 5th version, or 6th. Elon, as he uses Elon math. Basically, this rocket is the one they've taken everything they've learned about building the Falcon 9 rocket, all of that information on reusability, and they built it. They built this new system, this new rocket, the Block 5, which also is designed to carry people. The goal is to be able to, after every first stage landing, get 10 reuses of it. Like literally just pull it back into the hangar. When you don't need it, bring it back out, fuel it up, launch it again, right? 10 times doing that, then do a rebuild after the 10th, and then maybe get 100 uses out of it.
That's awesome.
That's the goal.
So, so here's a question, and this is, we're all on the same page. We all think this is long term going to be an incredible boon to humanity in general. But what do you think in the short term? Like, they're the first to start realizing these gains, and there's going to be some window of harvesting for profitability where instead of being true cost, because obviously they've sunk so much time, energy, resource, so many billions of dollars, they've got to do their profit taking while they're out leading the pack. And maybe instead of, let's say it costs you half as much, you only discount it, 15, 20%. You're now the most competitive rocket company ever.
That's what they're doing. Is they're like, the launches are like 60 million now. Like, yeah, we're gonna lower the launch price to like 45, 50 million, like 50 million. But like, wait, you're able to you're saving all this money. Like, yeah, well, we have sunk costs. We've got to pay for R&D. I don't know if you know this, guys, but we're going to Mars. Do you think that's cheap?
And what's funny is the complaint is like, wait, but it's so cheap for you. And they're like, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, we're really glad we did that.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's what they're doing right now. Is like the actual per launch cost is now getting ridiculously low, but they're trying to lower that even more. But then they want to use because they're like, well, do we need at this point? The thinking is, do we need to go to $20 million or $10 million? It's like we don't think there's going to be enough increase in business at that point. But when we go below a certain threshold with the BFR, which is what they say, yeah, no, we're going to launch this thing a few hundred more times, then it's going to be all BFR all the time, which is crazy that they're saying, yeah, no, the next model is coming out here. Yeah, that's fully reusable, cheapest rocket ever, largest payload ever. No, that's the next thing. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Nuts. Hey, you want to know what else is crazy? Giving us money. And that's what you can do at patreon.com/weirdthings. If you want to support this show, a show that, by the way, is only going to get increasingly more interesting as we get closer and closer to some of the stuff that we were talking about at the top of the show, that we always make sure we make time for you guys. Well, then you can go ahead and do that at patreon.com/weirdthings. It is not only a good thing for your soul, but you also get the After Things podcast a little bit earlier than everybody else. So head on over there, patreon.com/weirdthings.
And as a reminder, if we hit $600 per episode, we can start the project to break out Journey Quest, which, if you missed it last week,
yes,
just wrapped up into its own RSS feed. So
plus also now that we're breaking Journey Quest into discrete narratives instead of this long running treadmill, I suspect that's going to become a lot more valuable as there are beginnings, middles, and ends to stuff. That'll be a lot more fun.
Yeah. So Patreon.
Yeah, we'll have one more topic, then we'll have a little discussion about that. And I'm going to go to another computer learning sort of thing. Did we talk about Lobe.ai?
I don't think we did.
We have not.
So so we start talking about machine learning and all, and it's really easy to go, oh, that's really cool, nerd talk, nerd talk, nerd talk. But it's actually very approachable. There's a website or company now starting called Lobe.ai. And the reason I bring them up is they've created a pretty cool tool, and they have a very good video which explains what this does. And so here they have a demo of, like, let's say you want to build an app that recognizes your hand signals and compares them to emojis. Or let's say you want to be able to listen to a piece of music and tell, is that a guitar or whatever. Or if you want to look at a plant and identify if it's fern, poison oak, grass, whatever, or do handwriting recognition, they have a very good way of breaking down how easy it is to do this. And their software is pretty cool because it's like, I've used some desktop stuff to do this. And it's as simple as like, oh, I'm going to take a folder called hand images, and I'm going to have a folder in there that it's going to say thumbs up, and I'm going to have 100 photos of my thumbs up. And I have another folder called, peace sign. I'm going to have 100 photos of a peace sign, right? Going through all this, or it can even be video clips. And then what you do is, in order to teach a machine how to recognize things, you've got to do things like flop the image back and forth, have it get rid of the color, look for outlines and stuff. And so it's neat. If you go visit the website, they do a really good job of kind of helping you get an understanding of, because I find trying to explain this sort of stuff, it just sounds way more confusing than it actually is. And they have this really cool interface where you take your data, you plug it into the different models that are going to try to find the images or whatever inside of there, how you train it. So you take a data set, you use 80% of your data in which to train it, and you keep 20% of it to then test it and say, like, okay, well, this is a hands up signal. We didn't show in the other data set. Can you recognize this? So it's kind of a neat overview of that. So that's Lobe.ai. They're a startup working in the space. There's a lot of companies doing this sort of stuff, but I thought that their tools and their explanatory instructions are pretty good.
So is this something that the listeners would go and visit for the explanation that they put on there, or because there's downloadable segments that there's something they could do with?
So what you could do is they just have a tutorial. Then if you ever wanted to use it, you could actually sign up. They're in beta right now. If you ever wanted to build a system, for instance, like I was involved with a project where I was talking to, let's say, a marine biologist, hypothetically, and I was explaining the ability to recognize objects underwater. Like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I'm like, and then somebody said, oh, I have thousands of photos of these fish. And I'm like, if they're labeled, you could take these, put this into the system, and then output a little model that you could put into an app or just use online that would then automatically categorize any new photos and say, this is this, this is this, is that. It's like, really? That sounds hard. I'm like, oh, it's not.
So wait,
great.
Is this the same engine that we were watching the demo of the Bond action sequence where it was identifying everything around there?
It's similar. So that was a way a machine learning model, like a model. Imagine a model is you put something in it, and then it gives you its best idea of what it is after it's analyzed it, and you train a model. So what we were looking at was called YOLO, You Only Look Once, which was a model designed to do really quick, take an image, look at a bunch of parts of it as quickly as it can, output what it thinks it is. That's why it's called You Only Look Once, right? So that's a different, that was a model where somebody trained with a bunch of different images. And the longer you let a computer program run through and try to analyze it, and the more images you give it, the better the prediction model it creates. The problem is the computational resources it takes is immense. Because if you want to take a database of, let's say, 100,000 images and try to figure out what makes, catness or cat-like, whatever, it's comparing it goes by like these little 32 by 32, pixel grids. It's doing an immense amount of computation and then trying to evolve really good algorithms for doing this and testing and retesting all that. So it's intense. But that one was called YOLO, which was a model that some researchers had trained to be very fast and very efficient at doing that. YOLO has like 100 objects it recognizes. So if you put something in front of it it's never seen before, it works really, very, very fast. But it's not going to tell the difference between you and Brian. It'll just recognize this. So
right.
Notice it says backpack, person, dog, skis, but not ski poles. Not trees, not snow. But YOLO is a great example of that. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you could build your own system that could be very specific, because that one doesn't know the difference between different plants, but you could train one that knew the different plants or people.
Man, this is going to really accelerate over the next 2 to 3 years. It's going to be insane.
Well, because that's the thing is, not only is it the tech, but also the computing power.
Well, and the data, right? Because everything has to go through, think about like OCR, optical character recognition, like how rudimentary it was back in the 1990s and now how good it is right now, to the point where you got translation services that are actively live repainting translations of stuff on it. Like it's astonishing how fast something goes from the exotic to the trivial.
Yeah, that YOLO example we saw where it's doing that real-time watching a James Bond thing, doing this, you can run that on your phone.
Yeah.
That's how you can run that on your phone. You can do that. And there's so much of this is going behind the scenes now with Google and Apple. When you upload a photo or Facebook, it's doing image recognition to tell that it's to you. Like there's an algorithm in your phone. When you open up iPhoto or your photo album, it says, here are photos of you and here are photos of this. It has an algorithm for you. It has an algorithm that's used to figure out what you look like, and you can train it over time. So we're already doing that behind the scenes. But worth mentioning is Udemy, which, the online courses and stuff, they're doing like a Mother's Day sale, which apparently ends tonight. Still here, but they have sales all the time. They have a bunch of courses for just $10. So I just did a 3-hour machine learning, visual learning course, which shows you how to work with TensorFlow, which is a system for doing that, a little introduction to Python, all that. Now I'm doing a 30-hour Python boot camp from there. $10. Or if you have a library card, there's lynda.com has stuff. If this sounds interesting to you, but you think it's over your head, I promise you it is not. If you have an interest, you can learn this stuff. My stupid hobby is every year on my birthday, I try to learn a new programming language. First it was Ruby, then it was Swift. Now I'm learning Python and machine learning. This is how I relax after writing a novel or swim with sharks. I like to learn something. I'm not a math guy. I'm a Zoolander kind of guy. This is, if you have an interest, it's very accessible to you. So don't be intimidated by it at all.
Can I give, this is a little bit out of pocket, but it's a theory that I stumbled upon on Daily Tech News Show last week. That kind of, all right. So obviously we've heard a lot about, how Russia interfered in the 2016 election, and specifically in terms of Facebook ads. Right?
They divided us, Justin.
All right. So let's what if I were to tell you that this was not about politics at all, and that what Russia really wanted to do was just find the most shareable, engageable content that is valued by Facebook's algorithm, so they could continue to build their own social graph and tap into all the data that is available to them on these social network platforms. If this was not necessarily about shaping the hearts and minds of Americans leading up to an election, but rather to literally just engage them and to scrape whatever data they could from Facebook, that this is, if as has been said, data is the new oil, they just figured out a way that they could try to continue to build up their own store of it.
So you would get data for sure, but not like the level that, let's say, Cambridge Analytics had or Facebook handed over gleefully to politicians they supported. Cambridge Analytics used an app, and Facebook, where they have politicians they liked, just gave them that data.
Just gave them the data.
Which doesn't quite get as much attention as but anyhow, but you could from ads, you certainly could do that. When you look at the total budget spent on it, the total budget size, it's not a lot of money, right? It's so, and I was gonna say, my point is, it's not to downplay interfering in other elections and stuff, although some of our politicians have been advocating for years doing this elsewhere. It sounds to me like there's a division of the NKVD or some group there, whatever, that they're or whatever, some Russian intelligence agency, and they're like, hey, we want to see if we can mess with things or influence stuff. Can we get a budget? Like, great, here's $300,000. It's like, we'll buy some Facebook ads. How about that? But I think it was an intense effort to see what they could do. But I don't think it was like, Putin was sitting in the middle of a room surrounded by people going, and then we're going to buy this ad. I think it was an effort.
Yeah. No. I mean, again, that's I guess what I'm positing is that certainly, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of everything, but more on the idea that there is value, if even just to do it again on a larger scale, of having a larger social graph.
Yeah, but I would say that like I don't know that the people doing that who did this are the same ones who are constantly trying to hack credit card databases and stuff on behalf of state agencies to get more information.
No. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm not.
Well, I'm saying there are people within the Russian intelligence who do that. There is Russian intelligence agencies who do that kind of stuff constantly. This feels to me more like a half-assed, well, we've got a social media, influencing. I don't know, maybe, but there are better ways to do it.
Yeah.
How long until AIs direct these initiatives? Like AIs that know what other AIs can do to process stuff, like campaign strategist AIs, where it's like, well, the robot says this is the way to win the election.
We may,
how? Yeah, I think that there are certainly, and by the way, Cambridge Analytica as a company was one of those companies that was saying that their algorithm and their way of extrapolating the data was effectively giving you a better way to spend your money. And that's the funny thing about the Cambridge Analytica thing is that data people in politics thought that they were snake oil salesmen from the jump, that what they were selling was something beyond what is really possible. And they were just packaging up the same Facebook data that every political consulting firm and every campaign uses to say, no, target these people because they think that safety is the number one thing. So you should develop an ad about safety and you should target it to these people. That they were just putting a different spin on it. But that's the idea. The idea is that this should be more AI and machine driven in that world.
We've talked before a little bit. One of Peter Thiel's company is Palantir. And Palantir is big, spooky, big company. And what they do is one of the first big deep data sort of companies out there. And what they do is they say we have a tremendous amount of data, then we have humans that try to figure out how to parse through this and figure out how to use this. They do a lot of government contracting stuff, and it's when you talk about the boogeyman of big data and stuff, Peter Thiel, his name comes up a lot. Although, his book 0 to 1 is amazing, and he's a fascinating personality. He's a person I think don't have to agree with him, listen to him because he's got a lot of interesting things to say. But yeah, Palantir is one of those companies that does that kind of thing. So. Yeah, the thing that surprised me the most though was I downloaded I looked at my Google profile of me, like what Google thought about me, like it's stuff, and it was a lot of general oh, we think you like movies, we think you like this, and you're 65 years old.
I were like maybe in my heart,
Yeah, I'm like maybe, but I was like that was surprising.
I was
me.
An old soul.
Yeah, it's like we think you're boring and that you like old people stuff.
Yeah.
But once I saw that, it explained a lot of ads. I got, and I was like, man, I think the data is going to get crazy good. Right now it's not, and the analytics of it is not good because everybody else is absolutely horrible at it. So if you're able to get a lot of user data on people and approximately target it, you can you make more money, you become Google, but Facebook, but when it gets really, 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 it has the capability to get really good, but there hasn't been a drive there yet. Oh gosh. And we need to talk about this. Google Duplex.
What?
Yeah. No, the AI the AI who calls and sets up appointments.
Yeah. I only saw the snippet. I didn't see the whole presentation on it, but it was wonderful. It was a real life passing of the Turing test. And now, granted, nobody knew that they were in a Turing test, and it only had to be good enough to get through a brief conversation. But the fact that it being an AI, if you haven't seen it, Google Duplex calls and books an appointment on somebody's behalf with no human intervention whatsoever. A robot talking to a human, doing the bidding of another human.
So it's a really
Can we play the conversation for the uninitiated?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, so basically this is like an AI bot, but rather than just, hey, shall I make a calendar appointment for you? It actually calls on your behalf and speaks to a human setting something up.
Example, we think AI can help with this.
Wait for it. There you go. We're all good.
An online booking system set up. We think AI can help with this problem. So let's go back to this example let's say you want to ask Google to make you a haircut appointment on Tuesday between 10 and noon. What happens is the Google Assistant makes the call seamlessly in the background for you. So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you. Let's listen.
So how can I help you?
Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd.
Sure, give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, what time are you looking for around?
At 12 p.m.
We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15.
Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
Depending on what service she would like. What service is she looking for?
Just a woman's haircut for now.
Okay, we have a 10 o'clock.
10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, what's her first name?
The first name is Lisa.
Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Great. Have a great day. Bye.
So I was surprised to see some of the backlash of what some people dismissively called tricks, like the use of and ums or whatever. But these semantic crutches, there's a reason that we've evolved them into our language. They say things, for example, when I say and or whatever, what I'm really indicating is that I have something to say, the thought is still formulating, and I would like to fill the air so that you don't think that I don't have anything to say. Likewise, the serves an important purpose of saying message has been received. I understand there's a blank space as you are doing some task, and I want to indicate that I am still fully focused in here on the line. All of that seems, I will, I don't want to say ding it, it's obviously a miraculous achievement, but that pacing, that ever so slight, I think we're going to increasingly become aware of those slight processing power pauses.
I think it's an amazing demo. You know, we don't know how many, they showed one where it didn't work so well because a person who sounded like English was their second language was a little more confusing, and the AI sounded not patient. I would say that to the point of, I don't think, and I don't know enough to say, I don't know that the mm-hms are because it's processing or just because it's just really trying to convince you it's a person.
Oh, no. And what I'm saying is when it says part of it is to make sure that it's smoothed over, but also I think conversationally, when I say that indicates that I understand you're opening a calendar right now, but I want you to know I'm present and on the line with you.
Yeah, but there are some other things in that it sounded like, and we can have arguments whether there are some other things that I would say that were tricks to make you think they were a person, not because is data. That is me telling you something. I hear you, whatever. But a criticism. And again, I'm more of a bystander watching this, but a criticism made here has been is Google has been accused before of being a little bit socially inept. You know, they came out with Google Glass and they explained, what's great about this is we think it's insincere to hold your phone in front of somebody while you talk to them. And it's like, okay, so not letting them know I'm answering emails while I'm talking to somebody is better. And it's a great potential technology. It's a great potential technology, but their explanations for it were like, man, this sounds like a bunch of introverts in Northern California, trying to solve problems for them. And then, that was one of the issues there. Here, this comes out there and people are like, wait, we don't trust you right now. We don't trust you. We don't trust Facebook. You're an ad company. You're a company you're a marketing company. And now you've shown us this really persuasive, incredible piece of technology. And you never told the person on the other end, hey, it's a robot, which maybe would have affected the interaction. But people are like, I get the, listen, guys.
So yeah, I guess here's my question. What eventually the part of the fallout brought Google to state explicitly that Google Duplex would identify itself as a robot when it made these phone calls.
After the fact, yeah.
So after the fact. So it would call and you would have a thing and then it would hang up saying, by the way, I'm a robot?
No. What I mean is that, Google came out, announced this, as you said.
Hey,
we got
after
this
the
thing.
demo, yeah.
And they got the criticism, and then they said, oh, no, we'll say, it's like, all right, why did you not realize some people, and I don't know they should have to, but I get called by robots all the time. I've got 3 voicemails in the last 2 days on my phone from stupid robots trying to either tell me the IRS is about to arrest me, and these are not good ones, or I need to buy health insurance, and I can't stop these. And so now I see this demo of like, hey, they're going to get a lot better. And it's like, oh,
awesome.
This is, yeah, like, and I'm like, man, like,
and this will be an arms race. This is the same thing. There are contagions and there's antibodies. And what'll happen is first there will be a new virus called this plague of robot salespeople that are going to call you. And then what'll happen is somebody will use that exact same technology so that all of us have automated robot assistants who screen our calls. Then the automated robots are going to get really good at identifying which ones are legitimate appointment makers and which ones are other robots trying to sell you something. And we'll subscribe to free services that have best practices to filter out spam.
Brian, that is wonderful in theory, but in an arms race where somebody gets sufficiently advanced, i.e. the 2 largest tech companies out other than Apple right now are marketing companies, Facebook and Google, who's going to win that arms race against them? Okay, I get inundated, and again, they have a right to free market. I get inundated all the time. I'm not on Facebook, but I get push stuff all the time from there. And a lot of this data that's being used for calls and stuff is coming from them. There is, and again, free market, that's the way it is, but I'm not convinced that all of a sudden, because like how am I getting my voicemails? I mean, what can I buy to not get all of this junk voicemail stuff and these spam calls going on there?
Well, in the short term, nothing. But what that is that's an indicator of a market opportunity. So somebody's hard at work at doing that right this very minute.
It's been there for 20 years. I've had this cell phone for 20 years. I'm waiting to buy this, and I think that.
Oh, yes, sure, it's going to come. But think about spam. Think about like Andrew Main from 17 years ago was saying spam, it's around forever, there's no stopping it. And yet Andrew Main in 2018 probably uses Gmail of some variety and probably hardly ever sees spam, like because the filtering has gotten so good.
Sure, but that was a very low-hanging, easy thing to sort of solve, and it was also one of these things where Google and Facebook weren't primarily making their money from doing those sort of things.
Well, but even Google is really good at stopping Google. Like Gmail has really good spam filters, and I think likewise, Google will first sell the poison, then sell the cure. I think, or give us the cure.
They can't cure it completely because they make their money from selling and marketing. They're I guess my point is like they're a marketing company. Their goal is to get me to buy things I may not want to buy. That is how they make their money. So
I think the way they would describe it is they want to make sure you only get marketed to things that you want to buy.
No, and
they want to figure out what you want before you know.
That is the golden pursuit. And before we get into it,
that's like they make money from. I'm not their customer. Okay, I'm the product. Their customers, advertisers. Right, and that is in any pretending the relationship is anything other than that.
Look,
to me is
Google is not going to do anything that screws with AdWords. Anything else that happens, like AdWords, is their golden goose. That is what funds all of Alphabet is AdWords. Like the ability to go in there and enter in and bid, like that system. They're not going to develop anything that eats into that pie. Like that is kind of job one for them. That's like literally everything else on the in the world is on the table, but they're not going to get in the way of making that money, like ever.
And you're right, Andrew, in that we're not their client. But just like if we're 2 ears of corn, we're not the client of the farmer. The farmer sells to at the farmer's market. However, the farmer has a strong vested interest in making sure that we are healthy ears of corn. We need to be the best product they can offer are people who like and respect the marketplace, that of whatever, people who are in a position to make a decision and who are open to listening to marketers make their pitches. And in that regard, I think it's in their best interest to keep us not upset.
Yes, there is we are not off their radar as far as concerns and stuff. I mean, that is for sure. But the food analogy gets scary because then we can get into factory farming. The chickens are happy and none of that. My point is that their primary customer is advertisers, and so they and again, I don't think they're all mustache twirling villains and stuff like this. They've made amazing, great products and stuff. I mean, I'm impressed with this company, amazed by them. It's what your incentives are. You like anything, you go towards what your incentivization is for. If your incentivization is ad revenue, things like this, that's what your job should be as a company. Your responsibility is to do that. And so when I see a technology like this, I'm like, well, if I was paying Google a yearly service as my, to do appointments and stuff, I would feel more comfortable. But I know
Yes.
that what they're
Sorry, the folks in the chat are commending me on the hubris of going with the corn analogy. It was the best I had at the time, people. I'm sorry.
Well, we could get into
let-
people
let's-
arguing that the nutritional yield of corn has declined considerably as people go for more just bulk yield and weight and volume like this. It's a dangerous slope you stepped on, Brian.
And I think right now we at least have the power of the purse strings, and the purse strings are our money and our attention. But I can see as let's say Mint gets better and better at managing your money and so on. All of a sudden, like now, it's not even worth it to get the attention of the human. Let's just convince the money managing AI that they rely on to spend the money on the thing.
I love the idea of us creating more pay services that are incentivized to do that. I mean, I love Robinhood. I love things like this. I want us to say, don't be afraid. Like Netflix is great. 'Cause Netflix is people are never going to pay for TV. Netflix like, hey, $10 a month will give you awesome stuff, no commercials. We're like, no, how could you do it without commercials? That's impossible. The traditional media is like, you can't do this. Netflix like, well, try it. Now Netflix is worth almost as much as Disney, maybe overvalued, but there is to Brian's point, I think there's an opportunity for these services and stuff. They're designed to protect us. Just the ad revenue and everything else is such low hanging fruit that it's like, well, we'll do that, and then we won't be evil. And then hear that like Google just lost a dozen of their engineers and scientists because they're upset that Google is now doing image recognition stuff with drones for the army. And they're like,
hey man, we don't want to fund the military-industrial complex. We're out.
I mean,
all
I
right,
would personally.
Are we okay with Google Duplex calling us and saying or not saying that it's a robot? Personally, beyond the larger ethical concerns, Brian and Andrew, are you cool with interacting with a Google Duplex robot that doesn't identify itself?
I mean, in a weird way, I just assume everybody's a robot, whether metaphorical or not. So it's fine, like whatever.
He was called Brian's answering machine. That's true. He tells you that he believes you're a robot, and that you need to prove otherwise.
I actually have a Turing test baked into my answering message.
I found that when I called using a overseas phone.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, if it's a solicited call, if it's like, hey, if it's my, somebody who I deal business with and I want this, most of my phone calls now are from, every other day I'm finding out the robot tells me the IRS is, about to arrest me, or I'm getting offers on health insurance. And that's my problem is that.
Yeah, the telephone is corrupted tech for me. It is haunted. Like, there's literally my phone should basically just be called the Ashley Paramore, Andrew Main, Brian Brushwood two-way communication device. Because it's pretty much the only people that I pick up the phone and to talk to my mom. But even then she wants to FaceTime. So it's like there's literally like 3 people in the world that I actually have phone calls with.
So I have no problem with the tech. It's just the implementation is what's going to inconvenience me. So,
do you think that it is like Google Glass, something that you might get branded? I mean, like that. Oh, well, this is the guy that always calls in with his stupid robot when he makes an appointment at blank. Like, will it affect your service?
Yeah, at first, but eventually, what's going to happen is appointments and other sorts of technology gets pushed to us and it makes it easier to use it. We're going to be angry with it like we did the guy who had the cell phone in the restaurant, or the person who has a cell phone. I'm like, oh my God, they had to bring their phone with them. They have to bring their phone with them. That's just how annoying. And then one day you're like, having a phone with you is great. Or, having a voice assistant make your appointments is really great. And then we'll forget we're ever upset about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The most interesting thing to me is in terms of it being an appointment maker or just a place, something where, if enough people are pinging a certain thing, there'll be a phone call that just comes into a restaurant and just says, hey, are you guys open? And they say yes or no, or it doesn't pick up or something. I think that there's
Right,
And
or just asking man, that's what's going to be interesting is like a good personal assistant, a human personal assistant. Let's say you had all the money in the world and you're as famous as a David Copperfield or whatever. I can imagine him having a personal assistant that knows, well, David Copperfield is on stage right now. He's got these guests in. He does tend to like Chinese food after this or whatever. Let me find out right now how busy all this is. Let me set up conditional research for X, Y, or Z of what he might want to do afterwards. So, and then you call the Chinese food restaurant. You're like, hey, how busy are you guys? So you'd say you're about like 40% full. If I needed to, could I call you back and request a private area in the back for a VIP guest? Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll call you back shortly. And then gather all that information. That seems like that would be extraordinarily valuable because that's information you can't access any other way.
Brian, there's one big flaw in your argument there.
Is that David Copperfield doesn't like Chinese food?
No, David has his in-ear piece so he can hear backstage when he's on there. He's got the microphone and he's got a switch where he can switch the microphone either to the audience or not.
Yeah.
David makes telephone calls from the stage.
I have heard that from people who are front and center in the show. They're like, I'm pretty sure he's talking right now to a friend.
Yeah, he literally he will have him patch through his cell phone and he will make phone calls from the stage.
That's crazy.
In the middle if there's a music piece or whatever. So David will just do it himself. So, but
okay,
yes,
all right,
exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to come up with a singular item that represent both money and power.
Right. No, totally agree, totally. And I think we're all, and we understand that demo was the idea of how it would help us. We understand that, but those Google Voices, by the way, you can go play with them online. Google Voice, the new WaveNet voices, they're amazing. Like there's some of them sound better than audiobook presenters I've listened to, and it's getting to the point that
you hear that, Peter Diamandis. You've been called out.
I like Peter Diamandis.
Oh yeah, but wasn't that your beef on Bold? Was that no. he had like mouth sounds or stuff, or there was some.
Peter Diamandis wasn't the narrator of Bold.
Make that the narrator of Bold.
I didn't.
Another interesting thing about this Google Assistant thing.
Oh my God. Peter Diamandis is a god, and he's amazing. And Brian, how dare you?
Sorry.
Gosh,
you just put some words. You just put sacrilegious words in Andrew's mouth.
God, there was somebody. Maybe I'm remembering the totally wrong book, but there was somebody that it was read by the author, and it wasn't. It is great. It is great.
Abundant.
Say it. Say that Andrew told you. Prove to Peter Diamandis that you don't have these beliefs ascribed to Andrew.
Peter Diamandis, I was wrong, and Andrew would never besmirch your reputation by accusing you of reading that audiobook or of if you did perform it, it would have been the best thing ever.
Yes, exactly.
And would you please like to say that between 10 and 12 p.m.?
Let me check my calendar here. Okay.
All right. We have a hard out at what time?
I'm out in the next 7 minutes. So
okay. All right, so we'll wrap this up, and then Brian, you good for an after things?
Yes, sir.
All right, sweet. Let's do
super short picks. Cobra Kai. If you watched Karate Kid and loved it, and you wonder what it would look like, and if you want a mirror reflected on what's different in the world from the early 1980s to the late 20-teens, it's fantastic. Played by, if you want to know what it would be like if Johnny was the more relatable character that you were pulling for, I think you're going to have a really good time. Cobra Kai is great. Just look for it on YouTube. First 2 episodes are free.
Sweet.
My pick is The Americans. It's a show that's really slept on by a lot of people, but man, is this season really good, and I think it is just kind of underrated as a show. I believe this is the final season, but man, it is kind of hitting every note that I ever wanted that show to hit. It is great.
Bryce?
I've been really getting into Stardew Valley on the Switch. It's a farming game.
You're so adorable, Bryce.
You go and you like inherit your grandfather's farm, and you raise animals and crops, and you go explore the mines.
And then you sell them, and you worry about how healthy the ears of corn are, and so you got to take good care of them.
But it's a lot of fun because you can play it really casually if you want, but also there's a very built out system of like determining how to min-max and get all of them, automate all of your harvests and make the most profitable crops and get all the right things that the people are going to ask for. It's great, and it's everywhere now, Stardew Valley, so you can get it on PC. The Switch version's okay, it's a little buggy, but that's my pick.
Andrew?
I'm trying to look through, like, I've watched, while I was away in a far-off land, I watched a lot of stuff. Maybe I was out at sea on a boat for a considerable amount of time in a very remote location because of some special property, whatever, but I can't figure out anything of that. I'm going to make a couple quickies. One, The Expanse. If you've not been watching The Expanse is great. Sci-Fi says, nah, no more for season 3, but it's wholly owned by Alcon, so they may find another home for it. But Expanse, to me, is like one of the best things ever on television. It's fantastic. Check that out. Westworld, man, this season, I still have my little storytelling gripes that sort of drive me crazy, but it's gotten really interesting and made me go back and start watching first season of Westworld. And it's rare for me to be like, to admit, like, hey, you know what? It's better than I was thinking.
That's a big about face from Andrew Main on that one, man.
Yeah, like it matters to anybody other than me, but yeah. So I'm enjoying it, and I'm closer to where other people were with that show, because people used to be like Westworld. I'm like, it's like that girl I had 3 dates in, and then she broke my heart, and then and then I found out, her family was sick, and then now we're hanging out together again, so it's great. And then I don't know. Weird. The other thing is, I've been playing on the Oculus Go, which, if you want a cheap $200 media device, is cool. I found 2 games since we last talked about it, which were actually really kind of cool. There are 2 Blade Runner games in there. One is this sort of, you're in a spinner and it's a cool experience. You're floating, and that's the flying car in a Blade Runner. You fly through the city landscape, which is cool. Then there's another one where you're trying to wipe your memories because as a replicant, you accidentally waste a human and you need to go through your memory bank and sort of erase any evidence of that. And it's a really cool, these are free games on there, so they're not like super, you're going to play them for 20 minutes, but they're really cool kind of experiences. And I'm left with the same impression that everybody else who's played with the Oculus Go is, or even a lot of just VR in general, is great. Where's the software? Where are the apps? It's a neat idea, but we haven't seen much. And I'm supposed to get my Lenovo Mirage Solo later today, which has got the 6 degrees of freedom, totally standalone. The first totally standalone VR headset there is, I think, in the US. So I'm curious to play with that. So,
dude, that's great. Keep us posted.
Yep. Hell yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been weird.
Okay. Hey, good show, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a good DC
right here. Let me find out if there's a kid I'm in charge of.
Okay. We'll
get on the DTNS. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
It's just us.
Hello.
Hello. We got. Did we get 1 or 2? I know we got one really short after things email, and then maybe another one that was a little longer. Let's see.
Let me use it. Restroom break.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I could have sworn. Oh, maybe it was. Oh. That's not really a question. We got an email from someone about our fear of flying after things talk a few weeks back. And it sounded like exposure therapy helped this gentleman's girlfriend. So not really a question, but thank you guys for that, Dave or Dav from Canada. But yeah, we did get at least a little one. What's going on everybody. So yeah, if you're watching live, we're gonna have Cord Killers in about 3 hours. It will be Brian and myself, and I think Chris Cox is coming. I believe that's who our guest is. So you have a little bit of time if you have some time to catch up for spoiler time. We're gonna watch the first two. We're gonna talk about the first 2 episodes of Cobra Kai. We're also going to talk about last night's new Westworld and Legion, episode 2 and 3 from the 2nd season. I'd watched both of them. We fell off the Legion train on spoiler in time because I think Tom wasn't really watching it. But with Tom out, we can talk about Legion and kind of make up for Westworld. There's a lot. I didn't realize we were almost 5 weeks not behind because we weren't trying to keep up with it. But yeah, the 2 episodes we picked, I had already seen, so I kind of had to like scut through them a little bit last night to just figure out what even happened and what we hadn't seen. And then yeah, Silicon Valley just finished up last night. Good season finale, I think. A good season, but I think I don't know. I think the shine has fallen off of Silicon Valley, and it's becoming the thing where it's just like shuffling the existing characters, not really introducing new ones. You know?
Man, that show, I liked it, but I feel the Westworld robots have more character evolution than they do.
Well, yeah, because it's so much of that show is like issue of the week, and so when you do bring in a new character, you only have them on for an episode or 2, or they are in the background of a future episode or whatever. But it's just the same people doing the same things over and over again, and on some it's funny. I think the guy who plays Jared had the funniest line of the night. I won't spoil it, but he says something really mean.
Jared?
Really funny. Yep. And
which Jared?
It's on a television show called Silicon Valley.
Oh, got it. It was Jared Fogle.
Jared Fogle from
Musical.
Yeah.
Jared, the Bryce from Silicon Valley.
No, everyone says I look like Big Head.
No, but you're sincere like Jared, though.
Yeah, but without the like weird Nazi parallels that they keep like trying to plant in that character.
So
yeah.
Glad I don't have to go underwater anymore. At least not for another year. Fit inside of a wetsuit.
Yeah.
Or a submersible.
Man, how good does it feel to be in that kind of home stretch of being able to share? Like, to me, the biggest burden is keeping a secret. Just holding something back from not only my real life friends, but also from my online friends.
Yeah, because like I don't like to be vague. Like I don't talk about certain, like when books or stuff get optioned, I don't really talk about it publicly because it usually goes nowhere.
Right.
But then when I'm mysteriously gone from a podcast for a month and a half, and not be able to say anything, it's nice to be able to talk about it at least in part. And I understand, like I get the whole PR, yeah, we want to build this up at certain points, and I can't say what I did.
And more importantly, what they're really doing, unfortunately, to the talent, it sounds like they're saying, oh, no, we have a plan, don't mess with our plan. What they're really saying is, we would like to remain in control at all times of the plan, and we know the best thing is to ask you to not say anything, so that, whether we do good or do bad, we know it was our decision the whole time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I understand that, I totally get, like, how they want to handle certain kinds of things and stuff. So I'm totally on board with that. And I've been handed an amazing gift of an opportunity, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It's can't wait. And I shot the stuff they did for Cash Cab. I shot Friday underwater. So some of it before. So
that's awesome.
Wow.
Nothing like trying to ask questions with a full face mask on.
If we can keep after things a little shorter.
Yeah. Did we have a particular angle that we wanted to do on it?
We got an email.
Oh,
we got
great.
a very short email from someone that we can maybe start off the show with.
Sure.
From an old friend of the show. So I hope you're pretty good.
Strike it, Rich. That's funny.
What did I miss?
He wrote, I didn't realize it
Naked
took
and
6 weeks
Afraid.
to shoot a series of Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid, and also surrounded by sharks.
There's so much more about this that... I'm very excited for people to see this.
Yeah.
Because it's... Brian, I showed you guys some of the photos and stuff. And it's
I saw enough. Like, I don't even want to allude to what I saw, but I was just like, "Yep, yeah, that's a real life experience you had."
If you told me when I pitched this is what you're going to end up having to go do. Like, no. So,
yeah, like if they approached you and say, "Hey, you want to do this?" The answer would be like, "No, I'm pretty comfy."
No, I like my life.
Yeah.
I have
Sharknado 7. I think that would have been safer.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Although, I have a funny story about that. I have a friend, she was in it.
You should pitch making an actual Sharknado. Would that be amazing?
Making a huge natural disaster?
Yeah, no. So what you do is you get...
Or torture a living shark.
You find an abandoned nuclear facility with a giant tank, right? And you throw a bunch of, 1 foot long sharks in there. You also set a bunch of fans that create a typhoon, and then you measure how many sharks get sucked up in it, and you're like, a real life Sharknado! Right? Check out the BRIAN BRUSH.
I love all of the scientific assumptions in that pitch.
I can't. It's driving me crazy because
that was your original pitch, and now it looks like I ripped you off.
Not that thing, but
but just as insane.
other shark stuff.
when it airs, there's stuff in there. Not that. We didn't do that, but let me put it this way. If you want to see a lot of sharks, you will not be disappointed. If you want to see, I don't know, a lot of the most terrifying sharks you've ever seen, you could name, you will not be disappointed.
Dude, I'm so excited.
All right,
you want to see me amongst them in maybe a situation you just described. Similar to that. But who knows? Who knows? I'll say no more.
All right, you guys ready to go?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello.
And Bryce Castillo.
Hi, everybody.
Well, let's jump right in here, folks. Bryce, you said that you have questions. There apparently are people who listen to this.
Yeah. People send in questions to the email in the podcast notes. We got an email from Joe Diamond, who has written into the show multiple times.
Oh, good. As a matter of fact, I wanted to take a moment to thank Joe Diamond. Recently, we shot a bunch of Scam School episodes with him. If longtime listeners will remember, he was the one in the Chicago area who was looking to expand his presence there and had a venue at a haunted house where he was able to do his mentalism show. We gave some advice that he'd said some very nice things about, and it was awesome seeing him in person, hanging out, and having him share his incredible talents on Scam School. Those episodes will be rolling out over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So we got an email from him. I will read it here. Hey guys, Joe Diamond again. Thank you for all the advice you gave me for the mentalism show I'm doing in a haunted mansion.
He's ripping me off, stealing my stuff. I said that. Those were my lines.
It's become the #1 thing to do in my area, and every show has been sold out for all of 2018.
Holy cow!
I'm debating on developing a new show for those who come back to see me. Should I try something within the realm of spooky/fun mentalism, or should I use this as an excuse to try something different? I've been thinking of something more like a sideshow stunt / brain game type show with a human blockhead, memorizing a deck of cards in 15 seconds, etc. Escape rooms will usually have several different rooms, but they are all within some sort of brand. Should I keep sticking with the same type of show and wait until that dies down to start something new to regain public interest? Thanks, Joe Diamond.
Oh, wow. I actually have thoughts on this. And Andrew, do you want to jump in, or can I share what I'm thinking?
Go for it. I think we're probably the same mind on it.
So here's what you have. When somebody sees... So for variety entertainers, you work very, very hard to get very, very polished. Maybe it's a 5-minute act that you tour internationally with. Maybe it's a 30-minute stage show that you do at corporate and, events. Maybe it's an hour-long thing you do at colleges. Whatever it is, you get very, very good at that 1 hour. And then you run into the question of like, well, what do I do after that? And the most... I don't mean this in a bad way, but the gut reaction, the obvious reaction is, well, let me just write another hour-long show. But that takes an astonishing amount of effort. And for example, for me, once it became clear that I had a solid college show that I was touring colleges with, they were like, well, we want to bring you back, but we've already seen that one show. What else you got? So for me, I wrote Scam Sasquatch and the Supernatural, which I think looking back on it was accidentally a good play because it was something that was peripherally related to what they knew me as for the first time. You know, the first time is the Bizarre Magic Show, Fire Eating Escapes, Mind Reading, that kind of stuff. But this was different enough that, but still in the same wheelhouse. Honestly, the problem is, like, let's say that became perfect. Or let's say at this haunted house, you have the show right now, and then you're like, well, can I write a second show? Let's say you do write a second show, and it's thematically identical, and it's exactly perfect. Then you run into what I think of as the David Copperfield problem, which is, what do you do after that? Well, the answer is you write yet another hour-long show, and then another hour-long show, and then another hour-long show, and then that's you on a treadmill forever. It might be that what they like, yes, they like the magic, could be. It might be that they just like you. And the only way to find that out is to figure out if you can write a show that has what I think of as like a comedy engine or a content engine, something outside of you that relies on you and your talents and your ability to, improvise and be interesting and tell stories and so on, but that it writes itself. The best type of show, I would imagine, would be the kind of show where you can do it once. Somebody can say, that was great, I want to see it again. They can come back and see it again, and they'll get something different. This is what you're experiencing right now, Joe Diamond, is a big part of me realizing, well, in order to do that, I'd have to be good at improvising and coming up with stuff on the fly and all that stuff. And those aren't skills that I currently have. And that's why I started doing the BB Live Show, NSFW, Night Attack, and then and why I was so excited to join Weird Things, because what we do on the Weird Things podcast is we have a content engine that basically you plug in news of the weird each week. And now that we've all figured out what the different moving pieces are, we spit out 90 minutes of fresh original content. I would strongly encourage you could just write another show and you'll never regret having another hour of polished material. But it takes so long. It's like a rock tumbler to get that stuff polished. And then when you get it, it's diminishing returns. Because let's say 100,000 people see your first show, and of them 20,000 people want to come see your next show. Then those people, whereas if you could create an engine that keeps on turning, then you could get a familiar cast of characters who are excited to keep coming back to see what else you got. Musicians already have this. They have the talent called play music. And then their content engine is, what songs do I like? Do I want to do a cover? Do I want to write a new song? Do I want to do whatever? And so people come back week after week after week because they know it'll be different, but also have the elements that they liked the first time. So I would strongly encourage you, rather than writing another similarly themed mentalism or magic show, see if there's not an engine that brings out the parts of you that they already liked, but is something that could continuously reshape itself. Is that anywhere close to what you were thinking, Andrew?
I would want to preface it with a couple questions, because it really depends upon, I wanted to be clear on the venues, because you're looking for, If he's saying, I got this show in the mansion and I want to go do a show somewhere else in an escape room, I would say 100% give it a different title. 100% do a different show in a different venue. You know, when I used to do cruise ships back when they were, they had galley slaves, with oars to move them through the water.
Back on the Mayflower.
They wanted you to have like 3 shows. They wanted you to have like 2 different evening shows and a 15-minute show. You'd have this is this show and it's called this, and this is this show, then it's called that. They wanted that. They wanted maybe one that was more audience participation than one more that was standalone. So it can be very, very venue specific. To your point, Brian, it's interesting because like comparing, let's say, Penn and Teller and David Copperfield. Now, David Copperfield would do like the George Carlin would do, is he would for about a good solid 15 years, half the show was new every 12 months. Which was an insane amount of material to try to create and try to do. But we know who David Copperfield is today because he did that. Like George Carlin would write half the show every year. David was spending the amount of money David spent on magic doing that. But that's why David's show kept getting better. And he got better at making things better. He may have had names for this show, but it was really just David Copperfield. Now, Penn and Teller would do a tour-based model. They would do the refrigerator tour. They would do this sort of tour. And it would be a lot of the same elements from the previous show, but then some new elements or some new tricks or whatever like that. And so they would do like, this is the new. When David did Broadway, it was Nightmares and Dreams. There's usually every season he changed. I think there was probably a change in the name, but it was the same show evolving. For Joe, I would say, like, if you're saying, I want to do the magic show, the mentalism show over in the haunted house here, but I want to go across the street or downtown to over here at a escape rooms. And I wasn't trying to figure out if he was saying using it as an example or.
Well,
I think that's an example.
Yeah, when he came down, one of the things he talked about was how thankful he was for your advice of looking into escape rooms because they're so hot right now, and that's a venue that many mentalists and performers wouldn't have normally thought to reach out to.
Yeah, so if it's I think, keep the creepy mentalism one in the haunted house, but I think then in the escape room stuff, and you can give it a different, if you're like, oh, I've got an audience from last year, well, change that show. Add some new stuff to it. Even take stuff maybe you like out, put something new into it. Creating a new show, as Brian says, is hard, but it's the best thing you can do as an entertainer is to push yourself to create new material, because the problem happens is I've seen this time and time again. Somebody spends a lot of time, they come up with a really good, tight hour show, and they get a lot of work. People are like, we love it. And like, great. They tweak it. They keep it kind of relatively the same. Maybe they add a new trick or two, but they don't really put the same amount of energy they did into making that first show. Year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years go by. They're getting booking, but they're getting a few less bookings. Year 4 goes by. They're getting a few less. Year 5 goes by. Their show's not that hot anymore. But like the show works great with the audience, but the people who book it, and maybe it's a 20% difference really that's hard to see as it's gradual over time, and they forgot how to create. They forgot how to be. Now all of a sudden they're like, I got to create a bunch of new stuff, and they try to create a bunch of new stuff in a short amount of time, and the strength of them as a performer helps it carry over, but the quality of the material is not that good because they waited forever to do that. So I would say absolutely, for marketing and branding purposes, have a separate show. Absolutely try to figure out how you can put material in there. As Brian says, it's hard to put a bunch of write an entirely new show. But man, if you can get it, magicians who think like comedians, who are always working on new bits and new stuff and doing this, do way better than magicians who stand still.
So what my advice is figure out a way to dip into a well outside of magic, because
I was going to say, I was listening to your advice and I wasn't sure what that looked like for someone who wanted to be doing magic.
Well, and what I'll tell you what it looked like for me. Like I wrote 2 to 3 new routines every year I toured colleges up until I started doing Scam School. And then all of that creative bandwidth got eaten up by Scam School. And on the one hand, I felt like, oh, no, I'm under delivering or whatever. But then on the flip side, you could say, no. Instead of going from writing 10 minutes of new material every year and testing it out and polishing it while you're on the road, you're suddenly writing 5 minutes of new material every single week. You're writing 250 new minutes of material. And so likewise, and that's certainly me doing magic, right? And
well, it was me in books. That was like, I could, I'll apply that creativity to those writing magic books to writing thrillers and mysteries and say, let me go do that. They'd be like, why did you write magic books? And it's like writing novels, it's that. Now, I will tell you another option is, and I think Brian, you've experienced this to a degree, and a performer who I think I've watched grow and I think is phenomenal and his routines are brilliant is Justin Willman.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
in watching Willman started off like a lot of other college entertainers. He's a very funny, likable guy, but the material was sort of very similar. And then as Justin started doing, more TV, starting Tonight Show stuff, Justin appreciated the value of a brain trust. And so Justin works with a group of magicians who come in there and help him figure stuff out. And he's picking out comedic bits, whatever. The last time I saw his show, he got me a couple times. I'm like, man, like I did not see that coming, and it's great and it's wonderful. And what I would say, Joe, think about this. Who are some of the smartest people you know in Chicago? Who are some of the smartest people you know there? Maybe not magicians, but people who get entertainment, movies, pop culture. Sit down and think up stuff with them. Have a little brain trust there. And even when you're feeling a little creatively spent, you'd be amazed at what that does.
Yeah, and keep in mind also, there's I forget where I read this from, but there's 3 types of talent. There's unproven talent, proven talent, and emerging talent. You very likely, the obvious response is like, well, Justin Willman can afford to pay all this proven talent. He's like, yeah, because he's playing a different game. He's playing a more mature business model that's farther along. And of course, you don't want to trust the quality of your show to unproven talent, although that could be worth finding some people right out of college who are learning magic or whatever, have those conversations. Maybe only 1 out of 20 times they'll have a brilliant idea, but sooner or later they'll have a brilliant idea. But my guess is whether it's at the local magic club, whether it's from the audiences of the people who show up, you might be able to spot some emerging talent, some people that you could give $50. Say like, hey man, can we just sit down? I'll give you $50. Let's just brainstorm some stuff. And all of a sudden you've got real talent and real ideas, but it fits your budget.
I would say even stay. I mean, unless you know somebody who's a really all on board gets it, I'd even stay away from magicians.
I agree.
Talk to theater and. Because like some of the best ideas I've ever had are from people who get theater and get entertainment, and because the problem, like something like I have a brain trust, a bunch of magicians like Gary, they're going to tell you what the latest thing on sale at Penguin Magic was.
Whereas if you go to Comedy Sports and you meet some of the young talent that's getting ready to in the improv community, or if you go to some of the touring folks at the local comedy club, or talk to a musician. Like get somebody totally out of your realm. And then the answer might be, oh, wait, this is on Tuesday nights. I'm not doing anything on Tuesday nights. What if you had spooky accompaniment with a theremin because I've been working on the theremin? These organic kind of out of nowhere things, like that's what happens when you step outside your discipline and start talking to other people.
100%.
Well, Joe, You're welcome.
Yeah.
Any other questions there, Bryce?
No, that'll do it for questions today. So back to his idea of doing because it sounded like his idea for a new show is going to be a sideshow or a brain game sort of show,
Which, by the way,
sounds like if he does
that's good scaffolding, because that's something that you could come up with a framework, you could come up with the backstory, you could come up with some of the structural bits. It can always begin with 15 minutes of magic and mentalism, and then it's got modules that you can plug in and out, and those modules can be a library of 100 to 200. As long, like, for example, here's the difference. If you write the material such that it has to be these tricks in this order, then you are really, really locked in. But if you say, okay, no, I do 15 minutes of opening mentalism, and then there are 7 5-minute puzzles, and then you can lock down in the abstract, what do each of these modules look like? Well, they always begin with some kind of tale that involves a couple of elements of improv. I involve, names for the, whatever the characters are in this locked room mystery. I make sure they're the names of these people and somebody they hate, somebody they love, and 3 celebrities, right? That's something that you can write in the abstract and make up on the fly. But then, and they're like, and then there's a twist, and always Voltron shows up at the end. Whatever these things are, then you now have storytelling elements in the abstract that can be applied and constantly reskinned so that somebody can enjoy. Now you could do that for any puzzle. So it's like the first puzzle is always a sci-fi theme. Second one is always a fantasy theme. Third one is a dark spooky monster theme or whatever. Now it doesn't matter what the puzzles are. You have an algorithm that you can run on the fly live for them, and essentially you get an unending content engine that can go forever and ever and ever.
It's great advice from somebody who has been through this and done this over and over again. And I think that, Joe, your instincts on these things is often very, very on point in what you want to do. And so we're going to just start asking you questions. what we love about Joe, to our other listeners, stuff that we love about Joe is Joe's out there doing stuff. Joe's out there doing stuff, and it is a frustrating thing when somebody says, "Hey, I want some advice," and you sit down and you spend an hour, 2 hours giving somebody advice.
And they
Now,
say, "Well,
regardless-
yeah, but."
Yeah, and regardless if they follow what you did, and then a year later, how's it going? Yeah, I've been thinking about it, or this, or what. Like, I want to write a book. Are you gonna write? Oh yeah, and then a year later, like, did you do it? No, because like, was it really ever important to you? Was it really ever important to you?
There's no more toxic phrase than, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. That is blatant cowardice. It is the shield behind which so many talented professionals have hidden. And the tragedy is so much of what might have been never occurs. Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but success is built on failure. If there's any one gift I could give to the world is be bad fearlessly and exceptionally and learn lessons from it.
I am a very, and we're all very, very lucky people here. We're all very, very, very lucky people. And part of the reason we're lucky is that we put ourselves in the path of opportunity. You know, we made phone calls, we took risks, we did things to go out there to do stuff way beyond our capabilities, way beyond maybe what we're ready for, but we're willing to go do this. I'm excited about what's going to be, airing because, like, I went way outside my comfort zone at a point at which it's stupid to do it.
Quick side jag, Andrew. This will be your third or fourth successful television project. That must mean you've only made 3 or 4 pitches, right? Because each one hit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I would say that my success rate for my on-camera stuff, though, since after I did the Don't Trust Andrew Main show, has been 100%. This is the first and only thing that I pitched to be on camera. Yeah,
great.
This was the only thing. I didn't because I'm like I knew if I was going to do something, I had to do something very different. I didn't want to do what I did before, and this is sort of funny. Was it like I got a prop here? This is by conveniently. Literally, when I got this thing green lit, like the next day, I got the Edgar nomination certificate.
Amazing.
And I'm like, why am I doing this at my point in life?
But what a wonderful situation to be in, man.
Oh, awesome. I mean, I was. There will be more details. There are even points where, like, I may have been throwing up profusely from seasickness and stuff. And people are like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "Fantastic! This is the most amazing thing I've ever do." And I'm a lucky guy to be able to do this sort of stuff. But that's because you can sit there, like, man, there was a version of me that was like, I'll write an email to somebody and ask if they want to do this, or I'll do this. I did the most minimal amount possible. And my results reflected that, okay? At some point, I said, I've got to risk being laughed at. I've got to risk having people tell me it's stupid. I've got to risk immense failure if I want to try to step up. And then, a funny thing happens. Eventually when I decided to start writing books, which was now 7 years ago, I spent that first year writing 10 novels just so I could get that out of me. And then things start to click and click and click and click and click and click. And then now I'm at this point where I'm like, man, I wasted half my life. Because I was too shy, too timid, maybe it's not me to go do stuff. And I'm like, man, if I'd been ahead of the curve 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even a year before, and that's my advice to you guys out there is like, Joe's out there doing stuff. Go do something. Just do it.
Yeah, I think of it as painting in negative space, where there are 2 ways to draw something. You could draw what you think the thing is, or you can fill in with black everything that's not the thing, and then discover what it is at the end. And I think that, I didn't know that I was an internet person. I thought, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be a magician. I'm going to follow the model of these people. And instead, I've painted in black stuff that I'm like, no, I'm not good at that. No, I can't do that either. I tried that. It failed pretty spectacularly. And then you look at what's left. You're like, I guess I'm pretty good at being on the internet and telling stories, showing up and doing YouTube videos.
The internet can't get rid of you. There's one of the things that I saw early on was observing some people around me who had big aspirations, who were doing stuff was the first big failure they had. They're like, fate has decided this is not for me. They decided that somewhere that, you know, God or whatever, no, you shall not pass. And they stopped. I've seen that with so many entertainers and people like, I tried, and I got this close, and then it happened. I'm like, did you think that like yours magic and special, and that like it was supposed to be easy, that you only had to go up to bat once and have it succeed? And I've encountered this a lot. People are like, I tried. Okay, one, maybe you did something stupid, or more likely just the odds weren't, you know, like I've had the number of times that I pitched or did, you know, pilots for TV shows before I got on air. I did a number of them before they ever got on air. I never told anybody about it. And we never hear about that part of success. Is you hear, oh, so-and-so, they're great on the show. And they're great on, you know, Westworld. Like, yeah, you know, that person for 7 years auditioned for starring roles and said, nope. Okay. Finally, they got through. And that is the reality of it, is that most of these things, and whether you're pitching something, creating a business, or doing anything, it's persistence. You know, we talk about, there's a backlash against Elon Musk because, like, you know, you hear Elon Musk's name everywhere, right? And, you know, and part of it is this, you know, he seems like this very lucky guy to some people or whatever, but he's also a guy that once he amassed a lot of money and people become the most risk averse ever, they become super, super risk averse. They're not going to risk their money. He went the opposite direction. He put everything on the line between two companies, personally, professionally, health wise, put everything into those things. And then he shows you what out of, you know, there could be a lot more people like them. If you reach that point, you were less likely to be risk averse, whatever. And that's the thing, is if you're risk averse and you have nothing to lose, you're not going to gain anything. But if you're willing to say, hey,
well, and think about what an insane play that was, not only to make the decision to move into a highly risky number of ventures, a whole bunch of risky ventures, but also to make the decision of like, well, if I wear my failures on my sleeve, if I make that part of my personal brand, then on the other side, I become impervious to it. So it's like, yeah, go ahead. Think of me as the guy who's constantly posting on my Instagram, failed rockets blowing up. Great. Don't mind it at all. If you can be that person, then that's the only way to get through any kind of statistical improbability.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to a numbers game. So try, don't be afraid to be bold, experiment, be analytical, be self-critical. That's the hardest point of anything. When I first started writing stuff, it was very hard for me to take criticism what I was doing. But once I got to the point where people liked it, I could say, okay, not everybody will like it, but most people tend to. I'm fine with that. And then once you get to that point, the other side of it, then it becomes easier. But a lot of times people stop because either they can't handle failure or they can't handle criticism. But if you say, hey, this is more important than else, then you'd be amazed. It may not land exactly where you want, but you're going to land somewhere that's better than where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you got, I got a pick.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I just wrapped up like 3 hours ago a book by, he was the author of Yes Man, Danny... something starts with a W, but the book is called F You Very Much. It's F but it's about politeness and rudeness in the modern age. And the whole book got kicked off because he ordered a hot dog, and they Danny Wallace, that's the guy's name. He ordered a hot dog, and it took over an hour to receive, and he found himself fighting with the presumably the owner of the establishment about how he was rude because he didn't know how it worked, and he thought she was rude because it shouldn't take more than a freaking hour to get a hot dog. So he ends up commissioning a nationwide survey from whatever the English equivalent of the Gallup group is, and he calls it the Wallace Report, and has a number of different questions he explores with a bunch of people, like why do people act rude, and more importantly, why do, when faced with rudeness, people feel like they're entitled to be rude in return. One of the questions he asks is, he asked people in the Wallace Report, what have you done in revenge to somebody who's been rude for you, or rude to you? And he gives a bunch of examples. He says, now, I'm going to list to you what they have said that they've done, but I'm going to skip the part where, imagine these confessions if they weren't prefaced with, somebody was really rude to me, so I, ... Mm-hmm. Imagine that's not there. And instead, it's just a list of confessions. I spat in someone's food. I stole their whatever. I had sex with their significant other. I did this, I did that. Like, we forgive these obviously sociopathic, insane, terribly rude actions in our minds if they are the results of an injustice of someone having been rude to them. It was fascinating. I really, really enjoyed it.
Disturbing.
It really is.
I've been going back, and I just finished watching this maybe a month or so ago because the last season was on Netflix, and it, like, watching that last season made me want to go and restart watching it because it's not very long. It's AMC's *Halt and Catch Fire*.
Cool.
Did you get to see any of that, Andrew?
I haven't watched the final season, but I've watched all the other ones.
It's pretty good. I know, Brian, you were saying it was on your list to watch, but you haven't seen
I
it.
watched the first 2 or 3, maybe 4 episodes.
Okay.
And it seemed, I loved the very beginning of it, but
Yeah.
I was afraid of diving all the way in for fear of it getting mushy in the middle, but it keeps rocking hard.
It does, because every season it finds various reasons to reset things and skip time various amounts, and it basically follows these 4 people as they start out in the what do they call it? The Silicon, not Valley, the Silicon, basically the Texas Silicon Valley in the 80s.
Oh, sure. The Silicon Hills.
Is that it? Yeah.
Well, if it's in Central Texas, Intel is here, Dell, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and basically follows as these 4 people come together to commit a felony, and it follows sort of the rest of their lives over a decade or so. Silicon Prairie, PB Bunk says. Maybe that's what they used in the show, It's interesting. I watch it, and I like. There's something about the concept of, like, rehashing history from a fictional entity. Like, I think that's kind of why I ended up watching all of The Newsroom, Aaron Sorkin's The Newsroom, because it can be a little grandstandy to be like, well, here's how I would have handled the news of Osama bin Laden dying or whatever. But it's still interesting to see it emerge like this, like, oh, these people just casually invented broadband internet and online gaming and stuff. But there's something about it, and I think the characters are really interesting and are all have depth to them. So I like it, and it's only 4 seasons on Netflix, so you can probably get through it reasonably quickly. That's a *Halt and Catch Fire* from
Nice.
AMC.
Yeah, I enjoy it. They took a number of stories from the birth of the computer age, like the creation of the clones and stuff like this, and then rechanged the names and stuff, and kind of put this one group of people in the center with the kind of Steve Jobs like figure who then becomes not Jobs, whatever. And I enjoy it because what's nice is you go, oh, that was a thing that happened, but kind of not quite like this, but let's go see what happened there. So I enjoy it. I haven't watched the second one yet. I mean, the last season, but
The last season's pretty good because they wrap it up, because I think they knew that was their final season. So
yeah, and I was amazed they covered as much as they did, from like the birth of the PC to the rise, to the online, to the internet and all that, which is kind of a neat way to sort of tell that story. So it's good. My pick, and I mentioned this before in our weird things, and this is actually going to be my pick here, is man, we live in a golden age for so many reasons. Besides the fact there's such amazing content out there, it's so easy to learn stuff. It is so easy to learn things now. It is. I mentioned this before. Every birthday, I like to take some time and learn something. 2 years ago I learned how to program Ruby and Rails, and I made my author page website for other authors, a free site for authors to create websites with. Last year, I worked on some stuff, including I made Story Voice, which is a voice dictation thing, which does intelligent voice dictation by learning Swift. And then this year, I decided to dive deep into Python because I want to get a lot more into machine learning, object recognition, and stuff for some stuff. I've been playing a little bit with that. I said, no, let me just actually do a Python boot camp, like a 30-hour course, and then get into some other stuff. The beautiful thing is, it is one, if you have a library card in the United States, most library systems participate in lynda.com, lynda.com. It's free. You can get free courses there. Then you have courses, you have groups like Udemy, right? Udemy. Udemy is offering a $10 sale on thousands of courses. I bought about a half dozen. I was like, oh, should I do this course? But I need to do this one before. I'm like, it's $10.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in the middle of a 30-hour Python course with quizzes and interactive tutorials and stuff, and it's I paid $10 for this thing, and you know, I've already got, you know, a lot more. So it has never been easier to learn. I'm surprised more people don't do it.
And the way Udemy does, because Linda makes all of their own courses, I believe, or they're all like packaged in a certain way. Where Udemy is, people go and make it themselves and sell it. So if you find someone on Udemy that you like, you can kind of know, okay, well, I like this person who taught me Python. Maybe I'll go check out his thing on Ruby or what have you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I get this sort of fatigue at some point because people are like, oh, I'd like to learn this, or like, why don't you? Like, meh, you know, like, oh, by the way, I watched, you know, the last 2 seasons of Arrow. I'm like, and like in my head, I do the math. I'm like, man, you could pick up an entirely new, if you're skill deficient. Not everybody's skill deficient. You know, you're skill deficient if you don't have if you're looking for opportunities or occupations or things like this, and you don't have skills that are of value. Not to say don't have value as a person, but you know, I have a friend whose father's a typewriter repairman.
Right.
He's not employed. He's not gainfully employed because he's a typewriter repairman, you know. And it's hard to adapt. It's very hard mentally taxing to do this stuff, but it is so cheap now. Like, feel like, to go to college stuff. I have had job offers from conversations, people who had no idea what I did, but I'm in a tech place or whatever like this, and I'm talking about, you know, something like, oh yeah, I was doing this, playing around this bit of code, doing this, like, oh cool, what do you think about this? Like, like, you know, we're hiring. I'm like, oh, whoa, I don't really have, I'm just and I've had this happen multiple times because I take these courses, I get into it, dig deep, and then, you know, opportunities are out there. So it's cheap. It's cheap, folks. There's no excuse. It's time.
I mean, it's expensive in your time, but cheap in money. Like, money is no longer a viable excuse.
And I've studied the average person, and I look at the amount of average hours they spend in social media and other stuff, and I would say that more people often have. Some people there are.
Andrew, we've talked about this. I'm building a brand. It's important so that people relate to me.
Oh my God. Yeah. And so that's my, I gave Bryce like a hard time, and it was not me intentionally the other time. Cause Bryce,
I was thinking about like last week when you're like, oh, well, 90 hours, I could write a book.
Yeah. Cause Bryce talked about watch this. And cause like, I'm like, I could write it. That's how long it takes me to write a novel. And I'm like, that's the math I do. Is people like, yeah, you should check out this new show. I'm like, I have a certain amount of time that I have unwind brain time that I'm like, don't want to do something. I need to take my brain away, but it's a small block of time kind of at the end of the day kind of thing. But man, I mean, what a time to be alive. I'm just saying, what a time to be alive. The amount of technologies and capabilities, things that are out there for people, and all the skills, things. It doesn't have to be computer programming. It can be graphic design. There's tons of stuff, but all sorts of amazing things out there. Udemy, lynda.com, whatever. There's other places. There's so many resources out there. Don't be intimidated by it.
And I'll go to bat for Udemy. I've bought a course or two from them on like music stuff, and it's a good system that they've got. You know, I was able to, you know, I knew I had a flight coming up, so I went and I bought some courses, and I was able to save them for offline viewing.
Oh, I thought you were about to say like, just in case I want to learn how to fly the plane. So if they had a heart attack, I was ready to go.
No, but I was able to. I could save anything for offline, and they have chapter. You know, it'll follow you where you are in chapters of different courses. So, you know, it's a good system for being a sort of marketplace sort of structure.
You know, in this day and age, you want to have multiple skills. You know, Jeff Bezos was a finance guy who understands computers and then got into logistics. You know, Elon Musk, engineer, worked on electric cars, then got into computers, and then got into rocketry, picked this sort of stuff. Think of film directors. You know, think of, Ryan Coogler, okay? This is a guy, I guarantee you, he not only knows how to direct, he probably knows his way around Adobe Premiere and After Effects enough to get things done. He knows his way around writing. He knows his things around other stuff. You know, I think that, you know, John Krasinski, okay, you know, directed, A Quiet Place, right? I guarantee you it wasn't like he just one day like, well, enough of Actor Man stuff. What is this directing thing? This is a guy that you probably...
And my guess is Jim from the first season of The Office could not have directed A Quiet Place. Think about how much learning happened between then and now.
Yeah. Which meant that he was reading the same books other people do on screenwriting and storytelling and stuff and breaking things down. He picked up multiple skills and he went from, hey, I know this guy for he's in movies, he's an actor. I've met a number of actors, by the way, who are like that because acting's part of their time and then they're spending other time either getting into real estate or doing other businesses and stuff like this. So you can stack you don't just, there's a conversation we've had. I think we talked about this before, like, the 10,000 hours versus the 100 hours. We talked about this, Brian?
I don't think we talked about this distinction. Walk me through this.
Well, the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to be great at something, I do think there is something to this. You want your pilot, the pilot flying your airplane to probably spend 10,000 hours doing this, right? If you want to be Jimmy Page, 10,000 hours or so, and being Jimmy Page is helpful. But if you want to get on stage and play bass with Kiss, 100 hours, probably good enough. 100 hours will get you to that 99% level, that 90% level. Magic. You give me 100 hours to teach you how, as my buddy Jordan Gold, we talked about this, 100 hours of somebody who's a dedicated learner. I could put you on stage as a magician at the Magic Castle and have people think that you've been doing it for years.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction is the 10,000 hours is it's not even a prescription. It's just an observation of those who are truly extraordinary and exceptional and at the very top of their class of whatever their art is. Then there's B+. There's like good enough. Had a great time. You did magic really good. And I think we're seeing that, for example, a friend of the show, Matt Donnelly, he is an improv comedian who was dared by Penn Jillette, like, hey, quit pretending to, do sketches about magic. Why don't you just learn some magic? Maybe, I think he's not even yet at 100 hours of onstage time doing magic, but he is on tour opening for Piff the Magic Dragon nationwide. And he's good enough because he has chops in comedy and all that stuff, and he's telling a story, and he's getting pretty great at magic. Also, his drawing duplication is extraordinary. I highly recommend you check out his show. And that's not just because it's mine.
And like, think about actors or musicians that that are in the mainstream. How many of them started off great? Like even in the mainstream, right? It probably got better first, but before, whether you think someone might be on a decline, they don't start off at the peak, right? I would say very few people start off at their peak.
Yes.
So my thesis is that 100 hours of intelligent study is enough to get you going into it. Get you into the game. 100 hours of intelligence, and it's not a real rule, but it's the idea that, if I want to be great, I got to spend 10,000 hours. Well, maybe, but that's if you want to be the 99th percentile. But if you want to be the 95th percentile, which to most people looks like the 99th percentile, and then have the time to go do it, 100 hours of dedicated in a lot of things. Some things are harder than others, like foreign languages and stuff can be hard. But 100 hours of dedicated foreign language search of studying, you'll be able to get by. You'll be able to get by. You're not going to be proficient, but you're, So anyhow, that's my 100-hour thesis.
That's good. I like it.
So anyhow, gentlemen, it's been after.
Nice.
Coolio.
Yep.
All right, good work today, everybody. We have got to get off.
We got work to do.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye,
so long,
Andrew.
guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you guys soon. Wait, where's my thing? There it is.
Bending over backwards just to let you in. I told you that one day